The 9th generation Chevy Suburban is built on quite possibly the greatest platform ever to be made in the history of existence of cars. And I think that may be a little bit of a out there statement, but I want to know what you think, Case.
Well, we certainly love these GMT 800 vehicles, and they've made tons of different versions with different powertrains, different options, even a 1500 and a 2500. And that's why today we're going to give you the definitive buyer's guide on these SUVs.
So the Chevy Suburban dates all the way back to 1935, and when this thing came out in 2000, it was in its 9th generation. And this is the GMC Yukon version, but they also made the Chevy Suburban and Tahoe. They also made the Cadillac Escalade and Escalade ESV.
Now there are two different wheelbases you could get with these GMT 800 platform SUVs. You could get the short wheelbase, which is 116 inches, and that would be the Chevy Tahoe, the GMC Yukon, and the Cadillac Escalade. But you could also get the 130-inch wheelbase Yukon XL, or the Chevy Suburban, or the Cadillac Escalade ESV. But if you got one of those bigger models in both the Yukon XL and the Suburban, you could actually opt for a 2500 variant, which would get you these 8-lug axles.
So there were a ton of engine options under the GMT 800. Now, if you were looking at the base Tahoes or the base Yukons, you could get the 4.8 liter V8. And yeah, not many people know that, but there was a small entry-level V8. But the vast majority of these have the 5.3 liter LS motor that is synonymous with people saying, let's LS swap it. Well, it's usually coming out of one of these. Now, if you stepped up and got the Yukon Denali, or if you got the Cadillac Escalade, you could get the 6 liter. Also, if you got the heavy duty GMC or Suburban, you could also get the 6 liter V8. But this one's hiding probably the best of them all.
Under this hood is the behemoth Vortec 8100. This is an 8.1 liter V8. It is absolutely massive. Funny enough, this 8.1 actually has 10 fewer horsepower than the 6 liter Vortec. So this is 325 horsepower versus 335 in the 6 liter. However, in terms of torque, this 8.1 way exceeds the 6 liter, 447 pound-feet of torque versus 375 in the 6 liter. And both of those are well above the 270 to 295 horsepower you would get in a 5.3. But no matter which version you get, they all have a 4-speed automatic, just different 4 speeds depending on the power output. I know for some people, they might be worried a little bit about fuel economy with these bigger engines and this heavier platform, but at the end of the day, all of these GMT 800 vehicles are running V8s. They all get poor fuel economy. You're looking at any one of them in the teens.
Your fuel economy is going to suck. I mean, on a good day, I average like 12 to 13 miles to the gallon in this one. Yeah. This one being the least fuel efficient version of the Yukon XL. And some of the better ones, you're going to get, what, to the high teens? It's still no good, but who cares? No. Now, quite possibly one of the coolest options that you could get on one of these is quadra-steer. And that is probably the single biggest option that is going to add value to one of these, because those are pretty darn rare. In fact, they were only available on the 2500, either Suburban or the Yukon XL, and only available with the 6 liter. This 8.1 didn't even have that as an option, and it was a pretty darn expensive option back in the day. But what it did is it gave you some rear steering that went up to 15 degrees of angle difference to be able to help steer this thing in tight spots.
Now in 2003, they updated the interiors on these GMT 800 SUVs, which included some better materials, a slightly different design in some areas. You had a better driver information center in your gauge cluster, and that all seems to have worked out for the best, because even this Yukon that is over 300,000 miles, the interior has held up surprisingly well.
Now, another cool option is you could get these with self-leveling rear air suspension, so that helps you when you're towing. It kind of makes it so that the thing levels itself. As soon as you have a heavy trailer back here, it doesn't sag too much. The other cool thing is you could get these with barn-style doors in the back. Now, that was only available till 2005, but mine has the traditional rear hatch. And when you open it, you will see that I have my third row removed, but with that third row removed, It is huge back here. You could literally use this as a truck that has like a topper on the back, just hauling stuff around, and well, that's kind of my use case of why I leave the third row out.
Inside of this Yukon, you'll find a surprising number of luxury features. For one, these lazy boy style leather seats are about as comfortable as the seats in any vehicle on the planet. These seats, they're heated. You get auto headlights. You have an auto setting for the four-wheel drive system. You've got auto climate control. And not only the climate controls here for your front seat passengers, but you've got separate controls that are also auto for the rear as well. You could even spec these vehicles out with a factory navigation screen that is not this is an aftermarket screen, but those factory screens back in the day, they were really nice. They look a little dated. Well, they look very dated by today's standards, but it's still cool that that's something that you could have gotten. If you end up with one of these vehicles and you want some of those luxury features, you won't be disappointed.
Now the middle row in these is, well, pretty darn comfortable as well. These seats are super squishy, super soft. I have a decent amount of legroom considering this is a 3-row SUV, and I do have a little bit of a flip down armrest with some cup holders, but you could also configure this with rear captain's chairs. I actually have those captain's chairs as well, sitting in the back of my garage. But continuing on the back, you do also have a little flip down Panasonic screen with a DVD player, which is kind of interesting because you have Panasonic DVD player, but you actually have Bose stereo around the vehicle. But it all sounds pretty good. The stereo-ness is good. The seats are comfy. I mean, man, this doesn't get any better.
Now, if you're shopping for a Yukon or a Suburban, you might be wondering whether you should get a 1500 or a 2500, and there are some fundamental differences that are going to factor into which version of this platform is the best one for you to get. If you have a 2500 like this one, all of the running gear underneath is going to be beefed up. That includes the suspension, the axles, like we mentioned. This one has leaf springs in the rear, so it is going to make for a slightly harsher ride. But on the plus side, you do get standard that bigger 6-liter V8. Depending on how you configured them, these 2500s could be rated to tow up to 12,000 pounds as compared to about 8,000 pounds with a 1500.
So as far as the way that these guys drive, they actually drive pretty well, I think. I mean, you're talking about something that's based on a truck platform, and so it kind of feels that way, especially this one, right?
Yeah, but the nice thing about this is even in 2500 configuration, because you have this independent front end, it's not a solid front axle, you get a more car-like ride than maybe you would expect. And yeah, this 2500 is a bit stiffer, but on a day-to-day basis, I think it's fine to live with.
Yeah, I mean, especially because you have the cooler one, right?
Yeah,
I've got the big honking 8.1 liter engine. I got those cool wheels on the outside with the 8 lug axles. And, so I'm willing to give up a little bit of that ride quality in the back because also I use this as my tow rig.
Now there is a ton more about these GMT 800s that you can get in the weeds about because they made so many different versions of them. And we trust that you guys are going to do just that in the comment section below.
But before we close this out, let's talk a little bit about pricing. So when the Tahoe was brand new in 2003, which this is an 03, so I'm going to use those numbers, the base price was about $35,000. The 2500 started at about $46,000 and could be optioned well up over $50,000, which may seem like a bargain today, but that would mean that these kind of topped out over $80,000 in today's dollars. So it was really a luxurious ride back then. But nowadays you can find these for a heck of a lot less. In fact, I have seen the entry-level Tahoes and Yukons going for as little as like $2,000 to $3,000 in a little bit suspect condition.
Yeah, I mean, you can even get a nice one for still under 10 grand, which means you really get a lot of vehicle that checks a lot of different boxes. It's got capability, it's got space, it's got comfort features, and most of everything that you could want out of it for not a lot of money.
Now, there are some that are hitting that collector value. If you're talking about some that have the quadra steer, or even ones like this with the 8.1 with super low miles, you're talking some that are starting to go into the $30,000 collector range, but the vast majority of these out there, which there are a lot of them out there, are gonna fall under that $5,000 to maybe $10,000 range for a really nice example. And I think that just makes it one of the best bargains for an all-around vehicle that you could possibly get. I mean, we're talking something that can tow like a truck, but can haul all of your family and do it in supreme comfort and reliability. What more do you want?
If you're wondering why Brendan called this the best platform at the beginning of the video, that's exactly why. And when you look at it that way, it's a little hard to disagree. But let us know what experiences you guys have had with these vehicles in the comments down below. That's all for this video.
Thanks so much for watching. Take care.